216 unconventional destination cannot be started. Okay. So it looks like I'm not going to be broadcasting on Twitter tonight. That's kind of a shame. I wonder what happened to the Twitter feed. All right, let me get this title changed here. I am absolutely flying by the seat of my pants for sure tonight. But bear with me for just a second. There we go. And let me get these show topics. Well, let me just turn the show topics off. How about that? All right. So let's see what's going on. I need to double check my notifications and let's make sure everything's going live and all that kind of good stuff. All right. So let's see here. I've got a bossierwatch live on Facebook. Good. I see a few comments coming in. We've got about 10 folks. And again, we are not broadcasting on Twitter. We do have a few people that follow us on Twitter. So we're not broadcasting on Twitter. I got some kind of error message, but we'll deal with that. This is show 216. It is titled Unconventional. And that's a little play on words because we're going to try to have Duke, maybe Kara, maybe some other guests from the RNC convention floor in Milwaukee. Now, we tested this earlier. The cell phone connectivity was good enough. The noise level was acceptable, but we have no idea until we try this. We're going to see how it works. All right, Barry Butler, thank you for letting me know that YouTube is working. Charlie and Judy, good to see you. Val Baker, good to see you as well. And Miss Ann Bolton Denny, good to see you. Okay, so I know I've got at least a few people watching. All right. So we're going to have, Duke is going to show up hopefully at about 7:15 from the convention floor. And then we're going to have him on for however long we can. Then we're going to talk about the city council meeting, and I've got Colonel Crockett and Wes Marriott planned to come on to discuss the city council meeting because there were a little bit of fireworks today. Not much, but just a little bit with Queen David again. So we're going to talk about that. Let's see. Colonel Crockett says you're watching. Okay, great. So I'll let you know, Colonel Crockett, what we're going to talk about or when I want you and Wes to come on. So it's all going to be dependent on Duke's status like we talked about here in a few minutes. All right, so it's been an interesting week of things. I mean, first of all, we know, obviously, there was the assassination attempt on future President Trump. Of course, as I'm sure everybody is aware, he did get hit in the ear. It is an absolute miracle that it was not more serious. There was one bystander killed. It's very unfortunate for that family, and our prayers go out to them. And there was at least one, I can't remember, maybe two other people in the crowd that were also hurt. And so our prayers of support go out to them as well. But look, folks, it could have been worse. I mean, there could have been another person killed, and that would be the past president and hopefully future president, President Trump. I'm sure you've all seen the news reports now. It just missed him by, I mean, just a half an inch or more. Could have been much worse. All right, so I'm not going to belabor that point because I know you all have all seen that. I do want to mention a couple of other things, though, that you may or may not be aware of. Elon Musk has committed, he officially endorsed Trump and has now committed $45 million a month to a pro-Trump super PAC. That's interesting. Of course, Biden's interviews keep getting worse and worse, it seems like, every time he does an interview. Let's see, Barry Butler says 2 more injured, both are unstable. Okay, thank you, Barry. The Trump court case against or about the classified documents down at Mar-a-Lago, that case has been dismissed. Now, I'm sure it'll be appealed or whatever by the DOJ, but that case has been dismissed. So that's another interesting thing that's happened this week. And also, Trump's VP pick is J.D. Vance from Ohio. Now, I don't know that much about J.D. Vance. I haven't really dug into him that much, but I'm going to do that over the next few days and see what he's all about. All right. So we got about 40 people watching. It is 7:06. I'm going to go ahead and do the countdown. Y'all grab some popcorn and a drink. Y'all know the drill. We'll have about a 3-minute break here, and then after a few minutes, we're going to see if we can get Duke on, and we'll just take it from there, and we'll fly by the seat of our pants. All right, here we go. Countdown time.
Folks knew a lot of the back office on the politicians that they think walk on water, they would be shocked.
You know, there's an old wound from a knife in my back that just is giving me heck lately, and it's just really irritating, so I have to kind of wiggle around a little bit.
Well, I've not heard my name in stable or Baton Rouge in stable in the same sentence in a long time.
I titled it A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boys.
Just, you know, they feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
Some Republicans as well believe that government has the answers. And let me tell y'all something. I don't know anything government does well. Nothing.
Aren't there laws that say that you have public meetings so that the public can have accountability of their elected officials?
They're making a little bit of progress, but I would definitely have to give the race to Caddo Parish right now. Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anybody from Plain Dealing watching, you think?
As a member of the media, I'm very concerned about what I've just heard.
Did you or did you not requisition some money to fight against this or for it?
We hired a lobbyist. It cost us $15,000. We were opposed to HB 630.
So for this week, folks, the cockroach of the week, according to Bossier Watch and Duke Lowry and Rex Moncrief, is
Raymond Cruz legislative assistant, Allie Feaster Smith. Thank you, Allie. Well, I'm not thinking Star Wars at all. I'm thinking zombie apocalypse. No way, it was not David. You know it wasn't David Montgomery. David ain't gonna jump off in there with Chris. He's gonna do it. He'd soon spit on him as he would even look at him. Man, this is a Mickey D's Krispy Kreme wheat. Didn't you know? Who's paying y'all? And if you're driving on the roads, are you safe?
It's on the road, yeah.
Well, I know you're on the road, but I mean, is this all folks coming from the border down there?
Yeah, it's going to the border. It's actually going to Mexico, the buses.
Doesn't mean they interpret it the same way that I do. For instance, the Second Amendment. I take it very literally. That's been interpreted different ways in the court system all the way up to SCOTUS. Yeah, that's only going to cause more division that he claims he doesn't want to cause. And it's only going to cause more suspicion. We're still right now combined on both pages and YouTube at 264 people watching. That is amazing. Folk Coleman Project, the Walker Place deal. Through conscious, shocking actions. The purpose of their actions was to stop plaintiffs, being the Earl Coleman and associated groups and all that, from developing Walker Place. But here's the key thing, which in turn would enrich sitting city council members Scott Irwin and David Montgomery Jr.
You hit the button, does that mean that people are like seeing us sitting here talking?
Well,
chatting?
in theory, you know, it's an every week thing. We got to double check and make sure it's like a miracle any of this actually works. This live broadcast is brought to you by The Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 25 years in the mortgage business. Pelican Training and Consulting. Reach out to Julie Ferris. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And folks sharing information and watching out. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. And here we are, at least here I am. Got the empty chair. Let's see, I got to point this way. Got the empty chair over there tonight. Duke, of course, is at the Republican National Committee Convention in Milwaukee. He and Kara both are there. Y'all may have seen some of the videos I've been sharing out that Duke has been sending, which are some pretty interesting interviews, some really good ones, and just kind of some scenery around the convention to kind of give you folks what it's like, a sense of what it's like to be a delegate at the convention. Okay, so let me see, without further ado, let me see if I can get Duke, if he is ready to come online. Now, folks, again, this is live. There are no takebacks, as we say all the time. So we're going to be testing this and literally flying by the seat of our pants. So let's see how this is going to go. Let me send him a text message here. And let's see if he's ready to come on. So we've got, again, several things that we're going to talk about tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to get Duke on here in just a second. And, yeah, so, all right, just a second, folks. Yep, let's try it out. Okay, got to send a text message. So I'm being host, producer, and all that sort of thing tonight. So anyway, let's see if we can get him on. And this will not be the first time he's done it, but the problem is on that convention floor, it's orchestrated chaos down there. And so he may be a little bandwidth challenged. The noise level, I'm sure, is going to be loud. So we'll see how he's doing. Okay. All right, hold on there, Mr. Lowry. Let me get you over here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Excellent. I can hear you pretty good. Just speak up a little bit, but I can hear you pretty good. Yeah, it's kind of loud down there.
Yeah, it's very loud. And hey, I'll briefly kind of pan around here and show you folks kind of from being on the floor. It's a little tight, not too bad, but you just never know who all is around you. Some folks up in our part of the woods, they may recognize this guy.
Oh, yes.
Say hi to Northwest Louisiana. Some Bacchus folks in here.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Let me turn the camera around. I'm going to do it the other way.
All right.
Let's scan back here. A lot of folks in our area may recognize this fella. Our newest secretary. I always call him the congressman, but we call him Duke Ellington, but that's all right. I won't hold it against him. Say something, Congressman.
Hello, everyone. Back home, we're having a great time. I'm sorry to tell you, we're enjoying ourselves. Elected the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Appreciate it, Secretary. You probably prefer Congressman.
Well, actually, Secretary of State is not correct. It's just Treasury.
Oh, see there. Okay. See, I learned something.
Yeah. All right.
This is not only entertaining; it's educational.
Well, we know him as Congressman Fleming, so that's good.
Yeah, that's right. I'm showing my ignorance on live video here. So, Blake, again, you want to say hi to people in Northwest Louisiana?
All right.
A lot of you Caddo folks may know this little lady, but she recently got elected, and I understand she's doing some good over there.
Thank you. So I'm Grace Ann Blake, Caddo Commissioner for District 8 in Newport, Louisiana.
Awesome.
Glad you're here. Go Trump.
Go Trump.
All right. Well, we're going to slip out, guys, and I'm going to walk along as we go, and we'll just catch who we catch.
Yeah, so.
Excuse me.
Oh, I recognize that guy.
Rascal.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, so I'll grab you and get you to say hi to everybody in Northwest Louisiana.
Hey, Northwest Louisiana, we're representing you very proudly here at the RNC.
Excellent.
Except for at the bus stop.
That's true.
Except for at the bus stop. That was horrible.
That's true.
Well, I'm going to keep walking around and try to get up to where we have some better connectivity and it's a little quieter.
Right.
We're on the floor. You can see right there, South Dakota. And I'm going to cut around the backside. And you never know who you'll run into. And if I see somebody of significance, I may stop and try to get them to say hi.
All right.
Right here, you got the press boxes.
Right.
You just never know.
So I'm going to say there's thousands of people there. Will that be an accurate number?
Yeah, and there's Newsmax right there, live. y'all are watching Newsmax. Who is this? I don't know who that is. Whoop, excuse me. Say that again, Rex.
Oh, just saying that there's thousands and thousands of people there, and a lot of them are streaming and using their cell phones.
Yeah, there is, and the amazing thing, there are more. There's more press. Here. Well, I don't know what's going on here, but somebody of significance is going to be coming out there. Yeah, I don't know who's coming out right here, but anyway, they say there's more press here than there are delegates and attendees.
Wow.
And this whole building only holds, I think, technically 17,000 people.
Excellent. So, do you know who's on tap to speak tonight?
I honestly, I have no idea. None whatsoever.
All right. Ryan Haygood says MJ may be speaking tonight.
And you really want me to comment?
Oh, just remember, he's third in line right now.
Well, this may be problematic. I may not be able to find a way around. They have it blocked off over there.
Uh-oh. Oh, that's okay.
Okay. Lost in the Minnesota section, so.
That's all right.
Anyway, so is there anybody got any questions kind of right now?
Yeah. We certainly want to hear any questions or comments that folks may have. If y'all have some, put them in the comments real quick. We're going to try to keep Duke on a few more minutes. And again, this is just giving you a sense live of how it is on that convention floor. Obviously, it's very noisy. Obviously, there are a lot of people, and everybody there is pretty fired up.
You have an Iowa to trade?
I've got a Louisiana pin I'll trade for.
Louisiana's good.
All right. What state do you have?
Montana.
Montana. I'll do a Montana. You're live on Louisiana, by the way.
What?
You're live on the show in Louisiana, by the way. Say hi to everybody in Louisiana.
Hi, everybody.
All right.
What part of Montana are you from?
West Central.
West Central Montana.
Yeah. I think you got me from the lip down, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, they heard you.
All right.
So one of the big things here is that people trade pins and buttons from each state. And some people, you can tell the older folks that have done this a little while, they'll have plenty of buttons, and they're actively looking at people. Like this gentleman, he was eyeballing my chest, my lanyard, because I have little Louisiana buttons on there, and I'm sure he suspected I was a pin trader.
Yeah, there you go. Who knew that y'all traded pins?
Yeah, when I find a way to get out of here, I will. I'll show y'all a little bit more in detail.
Yeah.
You need to belong to the RPIC, Republican Political Item Collectors.
Oh, I'll have to look that up.
Yes.
All right. I don't know how I'm going to get around here.
So obviously, one of the challenges is finding your way around in that place.
Well, the problem is they have a certain section. Y'all remember last night when you saw Trump and you saw Tucker Carlson and kind of in that certain little box? Well,
right.
That's kind of, I'm gonna turn it around. That's where I'm at, and the Secret Service has it all blocked off right here to where you can't get through there. All the press.
Sorry, can't stand here.
How do we get around this?
What do you mean you want to get around? Go down there and go around the wall.
Careful. We might get you being arrested by Secret Service live.
Well, I don't know where she's talking about. How? Go around the wall. All right, so we're exploring. How do we go around the wall?
Yes.
Yeah, this this is chaos here.
Yes. Who knew that
Don't
the
know
folks
who's coming through.
Who knew that the folks here at home would get to see what it's like to actually be on the convention floor live, trying to find your way around?
Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to get somewhere static until we see what happens here, and
Yeah, that's
get
fine.
out of the way and maybe talk a little bit.
Yeah.
Boy, this is a. All right. I got to move. I'm gonna have to be rude to somebody, and I sure don't want to do it. I hear while it's being recorded.
Yep. No takebacks. It's live. Let's see.
Cut through an aisle. There's no way.
Just so you know, Krista Denny in the comments says Fox is reporting Trump and Vance are expected to make an appearance tonight.
Yeah, maybe so. All right, so we're going to try to go all the way around up at the front and walk around.
Let's see, and we're getting comments says Scalise is on right now.
Yeah, but he's probably not. He's not down here on the floor.
Right.
Tons of media. John James was right around here just a minute ago. Oh, I'm not even listening. Scalise is on stage.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how to get around here.
That's okay.
Lots of media. Okay. So where were we?
Oh, we were watching you wander aimlessly around the convention floor. This is great.
So we're here at Florida. And say hi, Florida, Louisiana.
Hi.
All right.
They had yesterday. I saw that Laura Loomer and Eric Trump. There was a lot of people who was in their section yesterday. It was pretty exciting. But anyway.
Well, talk to me about the process and let folks know how it works being a delegate and the process of selecting. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I hear you now. Got you back. And folks, y'all bear with us. This is live on the convention floor, and the cell and data reception, I'm sure, down there, along with the noise, is not very good. Okay, so we lost Duke. Let me send him a text. And we might get him back here in just a few minutes, so we'll give him just a couple of minutes to try to get his connection back. And again, what we were trying to accomplish with this is just to give you a sense of what it's like to be there. There we go. We got you back.
All right. So if you guys kind of delay for just a second, I'm maybe going to give you a treat. We'll see how this will turn out.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Well, I mean, they have you packed like sardines in there.
Let's see here. Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me.
All right. Ruth Pope Johnston says, great pics and content that you've been sharing. This could be interesting.
Matt Getz. Matt, say hi to Louisiana.
What's up to the
social? It's a local social media show in Mike Johnson's district, and we rip him all the time.
We got to keep this out clear. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
It's great getting talked about.
All right. As Duke gets arrested for having Matt Getz do a shout out to us.
All right. I'm gonna try to get up the ladder here.
Yeah.
All right. And if you look up the stairs, you'll see State Representative Michael Baham.
Yeah.
You're Louisiana peeps. You should say hi. Well, Matt Getz was a little more talkative than Baham.
Right.
But you just never know who you'll run into.
Yeah.
Boy, if you weren't on the floor, as you can see, you are stuck and not getting on the floor because they got everything locked.
Well, so I'm getting comments now that MJ is at the mic.
You know what?
Oh, I can hear him.
All right. Well, as I try to find my way out of here.
All right.
I see some of these doors you walk through, and yeah, you don't really know where you end up.
Yeah.
All right, bear with me. So, I think I caught Matt off guard a little bit.
That's all right.
But all day long you do that. You walk around here, and you never know who you're just all of a sudden you're standing there, just like I was standing there yesterday, and Vivek Ramaswamy came walking right by and actually said his name. He stopped, shook my hand. And anyway, then...
all right.
Okay. This is going to be entertaining. See if I can... All right. We're going to turn this around. Yeah, we're going to turn this around and... a
little better connection out there, too.
Yeah, do part of the show here.
Oh, lost him again. Bear with us, folks. Almost. There you are.
Okay. And all right, stand by. So, what are any questions? Anything you'd like us to see?
Well, no real questions, just compliments on the content and that it's a little exciting getting to see what it's kind of like on the convention floor. It's almost like being at a concert of sorts. Colonel Crockett wants to know if you're headed to the bathroom.
Well, no. Okay, I am, wait a minute. No wonder, I came up the wrong set of stairs. But if I hadn't went up those set of stairs, you wouldn't have them. All right, I'm going to flip the camera around. Had I not done that, you would not have gotten the little clip with Matt Getz.
Yeah.
But Matt was just telling that ABC reporter, he was actually talking about, and he was going to go a little further on Johnson, but he stopped short. And then, I think he kind of felt like I baited him a little bit, which I did. It wasn't to hurt him. It wasn't to hurt him at all, but he didn't know me from Adam.
Right.
So
all right. So tell everybody where you are now or what you're doing.
This is on the main concourse, and the primary entrance. You can exit a lot of them, but there's only a few entrances that you can gain access to the floor, and of course, only the credentialed people that are delegates can access the floor. And
okay.
I was needing to meet someone here at, in fact, right here.
Ah.
Well, I can't.
Jennifer.
I can't tell you guys. Let me turn this around. I can't completely tell you guys what I'm doing right here, but
Do you want to just take this?
it doesn't matter. Just go ahead, because I'm not.
Text me the time when you want to come back.
Yeah, sounds good. Stand by. Bear with me.
All right. Remember, folks, this is live.
Okay, so there's like a tradition among the Louisiana delegation, and a lot of folks. I mean, this is a good time to explain this. I mean, look, y'all see me every week. I'm gonna turn this around. If you like me, you like to go to events. I like to people watch. That's what I like. You know, you just see the most amazing things. Anyway, with that said, so a lot of people don't really. A lot of people say they're delegates, and you know, technically they are. But the thing is there's only so many delegates across, or you know, to each state, 3 per congressional district, and then there's a fixed number of statewide elected at-large delegates. And so I'm kind of waiting for somebody. And but what happens is only the delegates can get to the floor. So when you hear about an alternate delegate, the alternate delegates are the backup delegates in the event that the delegates, for whatever reason, can't fulfill their obligations. Case in point, 2012, or I think it was 2012 in Tampa, the hurricane came in South Louisiana. A large portion of our delegation are from South Louisiana, and they had to jet and leave. Well, a lot of the alternate delegates, even from Northwest Louisiana, were automatically promoted up to be delegates. And so, with that said, that's why you have them. Anyway, did I explain that well?
Yeah, pretty good. So, what is the process that's happened so far as far as being a delegate? What have y'all actually voted on? What have you done so far?
Well, there's only really the two main most important things are the very first day, and that's when the voting takes place. That business has already been conducted, and that's over with. Now it's nothing but endless speeches. Christian Gill, say hi. South Louisiana delegation. He's from our delegation. He's a delegate. Anyway, the business has already been taking place on the first day, and the voting, which was to adopt the rules of the convention and the platform. Which raises. There's a lot of people. I think maybe we'll go into more depth with that next week on the show on a little bit of the pushback on the platform as it relates to abortion. And if they saw the video that we put forward earlier, they would, I think that guy explained it well with that interview that I did, probably better than I could explain it.
Yeah, and so I'm getting some comments now from Barry Butler and Greg Bell that Vivek is up on the podium speaking now, just so you know what's going on inside.
Yeah, I hate I'm missing him. I would have liked to have heard his speech. They're saying he's probably going to be the guy running for Senate to replace J.D. Vance.
Maybe so. Honestly, I hope Trump finds a good place for him in the administration.
Yeah, I think I would prefer him there, but I mean, he's a shoe-in to win a Senate seat.
Right.
Louisiana delegation.
Oh, yeah. I recognize that guy.
All right, so I'm kind of walking around here aimlessly.
All right.
I'm actually looking for Kara because she had an amazing. So on that, when the delegates, we all had to come and be here. We couldn't go to some of the events that were outside of this because we had to come and do the business end of this stuff.
Right.
Well, she got to go to an event, and Donald Trump Jr. and lots of folks were there. Well, I don't want to tell the story. I want her to tell the story because I will butcher it up. But Donald Trump Jr. shared something at that private event, and when she told me the story about what was said, my
Up. Freeze frame for just a second. Let's see if we get you back. Hold on just a second, folks.
My mouth just about hit the floor. I couldn't believe it. We're on the media, and okay, you guys are getting
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of lag. Let's see here. Barry Butler wants to know any votes today or any more voting business that y'all have to do.
No, all of the voting took place, the first day, and that is all dispensed with. There's no more business for the delegates really to dispense with. But in a contested convention, that's not the case. This was not a contested convention. The platform was not contested. Everything about it was straightforward, and there was no contention.
Right.
So you may text Kara and tell her to come meet me.
Yeah, where are you? How am I gonna... Let's see. Hold on just a second. Duke wants you to... Do you have any idea where you are?
You can tell her that I am upstairs where she was yesterday.
Upstairs where you were yesterday. All right, folks. And bear with us, folks. Again, this is live. So we're literally making this up as we go along. And we're getting the full tour of the convention center there. Val Baker wants to know, how are the people from Milwaukee?
Oh, the people from Milwaukee are fabulous. I got to tell you, this place is clean. Everybody is kind. I'll tell you how in tune to making this thing awesome it is. When you literally walk into a lot of these events, they have volunteers that if you want to take a picture or a selfie, they'll literally come running up to you to say, "Hey, do you want me to take a picture for you?"
Wow.
Just that little simple detail,
Yeah.
It's pretty doggone amazing.
Yeah. Interesting how things have changed in the last several years and really in the last decade with that process.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm at the right place where she was or not, but
I don't know. I sent her a text for you, but no response yet. There he is.
So you can see down to that corner, that's where the Louisiana section is from up here.
Okay.
Anyway.
So how many delegates are there from Louisiana? And how does the delegate process work? Do they go by population, or how do they do the congressional seats? How do they do that? Do you know?
Yeah. The apportionment is based off of the number of congressional districts. So,
okay.
Again, there's 3 congressional appointees per district, and then there's so many at-larges that are statewide delegates, and that's what I am. The Louisiana Republican Party has an election, and they nominate individuals to represent the whole state, and that's how that goes. And to get elected on the statewide ballot, you've had to develop a lot of relationships with people across the state to be able to, get your name in contention there. I mean, if you haven't spent any time, developing relationships and getting to know people from across the state, the likelihood of you being able to be successful is not very good. But case in point, I would tell you, just like Parker Ward. Parker, he has been on the state central committee for I think 4 years. He got active, he got working and volunteering and doing stuff, and so he developed a rapport with a lot of different people, and so that's how that works. And I would encourage Republicans that are interested, want to get involved. I mean, you have to pay your dues.
Right.
And
interesting.
Get in the game and get to know people.
Interesting tidbit about Parker that some of our viewers may not know. He ran for mayor at one time, mayor of Shreveport. And I think he was only 18. Maybe he was younger than that. I can't remember. All right. Kara says she cannot find you.
Well, I'm not going to say nothing because this is on live show, but that's obvious. I can't find myself. But well, maybe.
All right, so
I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this? Why don't I take a break? Let me reorganize, and I will. Once I find her, I will dial you back up, and we'll get that story out here, and then maybe we'll go in a little bit more depth and talk about some more of the detail pertaining to the platform, some of the controversies, even pertaining to J.D. Vance, some of the criticism, and even some of the speakers from last night. There's been a lot of criticism and about the party, where the party's heading, and I'm not concerned. A lot of people saying, "Oh."
She said she's by 121.
Oh, well then I have to go downstairs, which I have to figure that out.
All right.
So let me catch up with her, and I will call you guys back.
Okay, do that. I'm going to get Colonel Crockett on and Wes. We're going to talk about the city council stuff. Just text me and let me know. Or if nothing else, y'all just pre-record it and talk about some of that stuff, and we'll keep posting videos either way.
Sounds good. See y'all later.
All right. Thanks, Duke. Talk to you in a bit. All right, folks. So, again, we knew that was going to kind of be a little bit sketchy as far as technology-wise and bandwidth-wise and all that. But, again, gives you a first-hand account. Now, I want to go ahead and get Colonel Crockett and Wes on. So, let me get that into play here. Let's see. Time to come on. All right, there's Colonel Crockett. Hold on just a second, Colonel. Let me get you over here, and let me get you assigned to a camera. All right, can you hear me, Colonel Crockett?
I think I can. I have to get my light adjusted here, but go ahead.
Okay, and I've got Wes, so hold on just a second. All right, let's see. Let me get Wes in here. All right, Wes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, crystal clear. Colonel Crockett, give me one more sound check.
There you go. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, and I'm getting echo from somebody. Who has speakers on?
Hold on, I'll get them off.
Okay, yeah. Just a second there, Wes. We're really flying by the seat of our pants tonight. All right, that sounds a little better. Yes. All right. Okay, so here's what we want to do. I'm going to switch us over to the city council meeting, and I'm going to queue up the spot where you start talking, Colonel Crockett, and I'm going to run through that. I'm going to stop it, and we're going to discuss it. Then we'll get into Montgomery's comments. All right, so just a second, because I'll need to bring both of y'all back up on the screen. Let's see here. Let me do that. And let me do that.
Hey, Rex,
Yes.
while you're doing that, you want me to just give a little bit of an intro about what they were discussing, so you don't have to listen to what the how the city read what the issue was?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, so basically what the city's doing in Bossier City is, as they, because they're not deciding how they're going to give pay raises to this part of the city staff, parts of the city are just giving up positions, and then they're distributing the money of some of the positions. In this case, it was one of the positions in the accounting department. And so they just vacate that position, take it off the books, and then they spread the salary among the other people. So that's how they're trying to give pay raises right now in the interim while they wait for the salary study. So I was basically commenting that, why are you doing this? Why don't you just look at where other money exists? And that's what we're going to get into in the city council. But they read that one position, and so that's what I got up to give a comment on.
Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and I'm going to play this real quick. So let me switch screens back. Here we go.
Thank you. David Crockett, 653 Dumaine Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. Each department is feeling the burden to delete positions without justification about whether the city is overstaffed. I rather doubt that they're overstaffed. The problem for the city is that every wage category is likely underpaid, which I think we've all talked about here, and you've already answered one of my questions about the salary study. I hope the city will commit today to publish the salary study as soon as it comes out. I think the issue that we've all talked about here is that for the police force, you don't have the luxury of staff reductions for salary increases. According to FBI Bossier City crime statistics, it would be risky to remove police officers from your books as you did during the 2009 financial crisis. Every policeman will admit that they are understaffed because of the force that was already reduced. The Fraternal Order of Police in Bossier City survey showed that the police feel underappreciated by many of the council on this dais. And one in the council is apparently surveying the public to run for mayor. Yet no one is standing up.
What does this have to do with the agenda item?
Is that a point of order? Well, you stop my time, I guess.
All right, so I'm going to stop it right there. Colonel, tell us, I mean, it's kind of interesting that he tried to stop you right there when you started talking about the surveys.
Well, and you know, Rex, you and I both know, it's when you start to talk about something that's contentious that David Montgomery typically interrupts you. The first time he tried to get me thrown out of a city council meeting by point of order 3 times was when I was trying to talk about the city's debt and the debt per capita when the city was voting on extending or refinancing some of Bossier City's bonds, which is also a little bit about what we're talking about here, because Bossier City's debt, to me, is wasteful spending. The amount of debt they have and the amount of interest they're having. So David Montgomery just didn't want to have anything about it. So when I started to talk about getting into a little bit more about the problems the city's having, he just didn't want to hear it. So yeah. I was prepared for it because I knew that some of the issues that I was talking about were going to be controversial.
All right, so we just lost Colonel Crockett. Wes, as a former Bossier City police officer, you've got some perspective in this. So why don't you tell us what your feeling is? Have you talked to any current police officers? I mean, we've all seen the survey from the Fraternal Order of Police. We did it, a couple of shows ago. What's your inside scoop, or what's your feelings on all this?
Before we even get to the current environment at the police department and how just tone deaf the majority of the council is towards their needs, I think it's really important to point out it is 100% unconstitutional for David Montgomery to interrupt Colonel Crockett when he is speaking about an issue before the council. There's no buts about it. The fact that David Montgomery continues to do that tells you that he has no respect for the Constitution. He has no respect for the form of government that's existed here for hundreds of years. There have been multiple court cases that have already established what type of restrictions can be placed on free speech. When you're directly interacting with the government, that is the most protected speech. And what Colonel Crockett was doing today was directly participating in the government process as they deliberate an action they're about to take. That is the most protected speech you can have in front of the government. And one thing that courts have repeatedly ruled on is that content-based restrictions are entirely illegal. And that means they can restrict the time, they can restrict the place, and they can restrict the manner of the type of political speech, but they cannot in any way restrict the content. And by interrupting and saying, well, this is not relevant or this is not germane to the discussion at hand, what they're doing is derailing and minimizing what the colonel had to say, and it's 100% inappropriate 100% of the time. And David Montgomery really needs a refresher on the basic tenets of constitutional law, and it's a shame that, you know, the city attorney didn't step up and say, actually, he has the right to present his opinion as long as he abides by the time, place, and manner, which he obviously was doing.
Well, but we all know now that Montgomery's got his running buddy Jacobs sitting over there in the chair, he's a little more emboldened. Notice he's not been very animated for several meetings, many meetings, but by golly, he was this afternoon. All right, so Colonel Crockett, when he interjected, what was your response to that?
Well, basically, what I was trying to make sure was that they didn't take my time away. So my response immediately was to try to go through the president, which David Montgomery has a habit of assuming the role of the president and trying to tell you whether you have a right to speak or not. So I was prepared for that. You know, I wasn't going to let it bother me. And so I just went through the president to just, you know, try to get to the point where I could just continue what I was going to do. But when David Montgomery started to offer, I think, you know, that he would let me just speak as much as I wanted, I was willing to do that. I just said, don't start my clock.
Right. I don't blame you. All right. So I've got Duke and Kara lined back up. So I'm going to ask y'all to do one favor, and we want to continue this discussion because we're going to get into the police pay, the Bossier City police pay, and the debt sum. So I'm going to disconnect you two. I'm going to switch back to Duke and Kara, and if y'all will be patient and wait about 5 or 10 more minutes, we'll come back on, and then we'll continue this discussion. That sound like a plan?
Absolutely.
Yep, sounds
just
good.
Cut us off.
All right, I'll text you when I'm ready. Okay, let me see here if I can get Duke back on. All right, let's see. Well, this is like herding cats here. All right. So I just sent Duke a text. And let's see if I can get him back on. And we'll continue from there. And look, folks, there were some low-level fireworks that went on today in the city council meeting. I mean, Montgomery was, I guess, feeling his oats with Jacob sitting there. I don't know. But he decided to challenge the colonel just a little bit again. And he decided to get on his soapbox and go back into the issue of the 2009 layoffs that weren't really layoffs, or I don't know how he actually framed that. All right, here is Mr. Lowry. So let's see what we got going. All right, we have music in the background. And we have no video yet. No video. So let's see if we can get video in. Almost there, folks. Let's see if we can get this accomplished. You want to try again, Duke? We might have a few technical challenges. All right, let me give him just a second here and see if we can get him in. Y'all hold on and be patient. All right, I'm going to hang.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me? All right, let me disconnect him and tell him to try again. Hold on just a second. So all the real reporters there have, I'm sure, their own dedicated bandwidth. And yes, Val Baker, it's the metal roofing, basically a Faraday cage. So anyway, let's see if we can get Duke back in and maybe he'll get a little better connection this time and see if we can get a little more of the inside baseball. But what I was saying about the city council meeting was that apparently, all right, here we go. Aha! We have you.
All right, there we are. Can you hear us?
I can hear you and can see you.
Well, so we don't deprive people of seeing a little bit of the convention video. I'll have it there in the background behind us. So, like I was telling y'all earlier, you know, the delegates, we had to come to the convention floor, and we had to do a little voting and conduct business, and we weren't able to go to some of the pre-scheduled events. And but Kara was able to go to one particular event that was a pretty amazing event, and well, y'all all know who Kara is. Anyway.
It only took me 3 years to get on the show.
She's brave.
You'd think I'd know somebody.
Yeah, you think. So, you told me a story that, and just tell everybody generally about how it was, but then also, then I want you to tell the particular story at the end, describe the event, all the people that were there, and then the one thing that was of significance.
Right. So it wasn't a hunting club, actually. It was put on by Don Jr. and Rock Borderline from our neck of the woods. Rock's put a lot of money to increase voter turnout by not gun owners, by
Tell her to speak up.
And so this event, it was pretty amazing. And so the end, the top off was Ted Nugent actually played at the end, which I haven't uploaded my video yet. But during Don Jr.'s speech, he actually told the story. He said it actually took about an hour and a half because, of course, they locked down all the phones. It took about an hour and a half for him to actually get on the phone to actually talk to his dad. And so he answers the phone, you know, hello, and he said that his, he said, how are you? And his dad says, I bet you're pissed, aren't you? President Trump says that, and then Don Jr. says, why? Why would I be mad? He said, because they shot me first. And we're like, whoa. It was pretty funny.
Totally Trump.
I haven't heard that story anywhere else, and if that gives you the mentality of Trump, you know, and it says something about the family, and that just emboldens me to support him even more.
Oh, absolutely.
Don Jr. was pretty humble. Sorry, Rex, I can see your mouth, but I can't hear you talking. But Don Jr. was pretty humble through the whole thing, and it was a different tenor of his voice, but it's still defiant, still fighting, still supporting his father and whatever he decides to do. So it was a pretty amazing luncheon style barbecue.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll let y'all get back to the convention. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think maybe it would be appropriate for us to talk more in depth on the party politics end of it, and a lot of people that, especially Christian folks, a lot of folks are expressing, oh, the Republican Party, they're nothing but the Democrat Party now, and then a lot of people talking about the Teamsters speaker, and then of course having a lot of different, having a porn star for a speaker or a prostitute, and so I think it'd be best to address all that maybe our next show, but I think there's two sides to every story, and I think we're going to need to tell the other side of the story. And I'm not justifying anybody's activity, but we can't condemn people and at the same time not offer an opportunity to change.
You were right.
It's something I've always talked about, these big mega churches. I don't like it. It's like they're building castles to keep people out, not bring people in, keep people out. And you know, that's essentially what the Republican Party has been, but I would say that we've turned the page on that. And I read a thing where somebody said, this is no longer the Republican Party. They're right, it's not. It's the MAGA Party now.
Yes, there you go. And how the MAGA Party has evolved quickly over the last few years.
That's right. So, anyway, I'll let you go, and from Milwaukee, we will say bye to you, and we'll be trying to send little videos and maybe some interviews. Kara, you want to?
Oh, I saw an interview Instagram. I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene too.
Oh, I got to go find Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, snag some more good interviews. All right, see y'all later. Y'all be careful and have fun.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right. YMCA playing back there, Village People. All right, so let's see. Let me go ahead and let me get my guests to come back on. So Colonel Crockett and Wes, come on back in if you can, and we'll continue our conversation. Let me shoot out a couple of text messages here. And let me see if we can get them back on. There's Mr. Marriott, and Colonel Crockett should be with us hopefully shortly.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Having a good quality mic helps. Okay, let's see here. Let me get the Colonel in here just a second. There's Mr. Marriott, and Colonel Crockett. All right. And he's got the TV up in the background. No video. And he's muted. Hold on a second here. Colonel Crockett, can you hear us? All right, let me get him to try that again. Hold on. Let me cancel that. Try again. Okay. So let's give him just a second, Wes, and then we'll finish going down that rabbit hole we were going. Because look, you're right. There is no doubt that David Montgomery, the Queen himself, feels much more emboldened now that Jacobs is sitting over there in that chair, and he feels he can just trample on the Constitution again. All right, let me see if I can get the Colonel in again, and we'll continue that thought.
Or something.
Okay, we can see you and hear you.
Well, there you go. You want me to catch us up back to where we were?
Yeah. So we'll continue on with Wes's thought about the Constitution here in just a second. Why don't you catch us up to, let me see where we left off, to the point that David interrupted you and did not do a point of order, and you were addressing the president of the council, which is proper and what you're supposed to do. So let's start from that point, and then we'll just wing it from there.
Well, you basically did a good job of summarizing it, because I was just kind of prepared that I might have been interrupted, because I knew that it was going to be a little bit contentious, because as soon as I started mentioning that, I think it was right at the point where I was talking about how somebody had done a survey of the public that was going to be running for mayor. You know, what I was basically trying to point out was that, you know, somebody on the council may be running for mayor, but no one's bringing up that the city police and other staff are not getting the pay raises that they need. So that's what I was going to lead into, and I was just going to pause as long as it took. And I was willing to debate him if he wanted to debate anything he wanted to talk about on the floor.
Yeah, he did issue a challenge. So I would like to remind everybody that all politicians have an open invitation to come on the show. David Montgomery certainly has my cell phone number. I'm pretty sure he's got Duke. So anytime you want to debate, David, come on down. All right.
I can agree with that.
All right, so we'll get to the debt here in a minute. So Wes, I want you to continue on with your thought as far as the constitutional violation, and then, you know, this just seems par for the course for our city council. And then let's talk about the police pay.
Sure. Again, this is not something that is unusual or new behavior. They've been doing this now for years. I filed my federal lawsuit in October of last year for very similar behavior. When a constituent or a citizen is addressing the council about the action they're about to take, the courts and the Constitution take that type of speech very seriously. And they say that that political speech is called core political speech, and it must be protected, even if it's unpopular, even if it's scandalous, or even if it's
boisterous.
Exactly. If
or
all of those
impertinent.
terms, do you think that our founding fathers were boisterous when they unshackled themselves from the British crown? This is the behavior that they are protecting, because popular speech does not require protection. If you're saying, hey, you guys are doing a great job, I love everything you're doing, no one's going to stop you from speaking. But if you're pointing out the flaws and saying, hey, the government is doing something wrong, or the government is doing something that I think they could do better, that type of speech is protected, because it must be, because otherwise you end up with a totalitarian form of government and you're led by a tyrant. And David Montgomery is becoming a tyrant every time he stops and interrupts somebody from speaking.
All right, so I'm going to switch screens again, and I'm going to hit play. And Colonel Crockett, let me get you back on the screen. All right, so let's listen to what Montgomery had to say. Here we go.
It's about what you're doing, Mr. President. I'll address it to you. It's about changing positions so that you can fund pay raises, which is what you're doing.
Which we've
so
done.
If you'll let me finish my comment, I'll tie it to what I'm saying.
Which we've done in the past, and you've questioned that, we've explained it to you.
Okay, well, you're welcome. If you want me to explain it more, I'll take more than my 3 minutes.
Well, you're not speaking to the agenda item.
Yes, I am.
You're trying to go around the merry-go-round.
Let me finish my comment, Mr. President. Are you going to rule on what he's trying to say? Because I think it's your right to do so.
There you go.
Just make your point. So I'm asking.
So I'm going to stop it right there. I want to congratulate you on basically ignoring him.
Well, Rex, I mean, hopefully anyone who desires to go and speak their mind in front of the city council in Bossier City, you have to get ready to tune David Montgomery out. I think, we saw it very well during the last term limits meetings that the mayor kept trying to push, that they try to confuse you, they try to interfere. Wes was very good at that, and I think I take my lessons from Wes.
All right, here we go.
Okay, well, my point is that the Fraternal Order of Police in Bossier City survey showed that the police feel underappreciated by many of the people on this dais. One of the people in the council is apparently running a survey for the public because he's going to run for mayor. Yet you don't stand up publicly and demand urgent solutions that will solve the police's problem, even though you've given bonuses. During the term limits petition, most citizens were surprised by the low pay for Bossier City policemen and the $32 million in principal and interest payments on Bossier City's long-term debt. Many asked what happened to the casino revenues. So my point is, rather than doing these changes on a position-by-position basis throughout the year, which is what seems to be occurring in the council, Bossier City can stop the bleeding. The Casino Trust Fund is something I've recommended in the past. Unrestrict that money so that the city can use the $30 million that's sitting in the account and consider quickly resolving some of these issues, because we already know the police force is underpaid. So I think Bossier City has an option to do that. The budget cycle's coming up. I think the people have a right to know, and maybe an input into how that money is using. And I think the city ought to be careful about its wasteful spending. Thank you very much for your opportunity.
Let me correct you on something. And David,
all right, so I'm going to pause right here for just a second. So this is where it gets really contentious. So, Colonel Crockett, tell me what's going through your mind right here.
Well, right then, I didn't know what Bubba Don was going to say. I realized that David was going to argue against any point that I wanted to make, but I thought that I brought it right back to the point that tied all this in. I felt very comfortable that I tied it into the fact that the police cannot give up a police position and then spread it around for salary and pay raises, but they're doing that for everybody else in the city. So I thought I made my point really well. I felt pretty good at that point, but I didn't know that Bubba Don was going to give me an opportunity to speak further.
All right, Wes, as a former Bossier police officer, do you feel, I'm going to put you on the spot here, do you feel that the pay was adequate, not enough? Do you feel the city council was looking out for you guys when you were on the force? What's your opinion on that?
So when you go back 8 years, they had a similar drive to get pay raises. I think the last pay raise was around 2018 or so. Prior to that, it had been an additional, decade, 12 years plus since their previous pay raise, but it never was anything up to the market average or the regional average. And the same complaints that you were hearing today, those well-founded complaints, we heard back in 2016. And there were several officers that did a very similar survey. And they said, hey, I'm working 20, 30 plus hours a week in overtime so I can pay the bills. I have, my wife is working 20, 30 hours a week overtime so we can afford to put our kids, in school. So there's nothing new this time around that wasn't there going on when I was there.
All right, so I'm going to play this through, and then we'll continue the discussion.
Or not. Back in 2009, I was president when all that went on. We didn't let go anybody from the police force.
You didn't let people off the books as they. I thought that the positions were reduced by about 8 or 9 positions, or they went under unfunded.
Am I correct, Mr. Montgomery, or am I wrong?
Phone a friend.
Took them out of the budget.
Absolutely.
No one was, I can finish. No one was laid off.
Exactly.
I appreciate it. But yes, we had a 10% correction in the budget because we were $6.8 million in the hole to spend. So it was a necessity, and the reason, in a nutshell, it would take days to explain, is that we overspent and gave raises when we couldn't afford it. And that's why we are so cautious today that we make sure before we give these raises that there's a revenue stream that is appropriate to fund the cost of these raises, which roughly...
I'm going to just pause it right there for a second. I basically have 3 things to say. Tennis courts, YMCA, and towers of tax dollars. I mean...
Rex, excuse me, you're exactly right. And if I can jump in here, one, the fact that he said that no one was laid off and that these positions were reduced, those positions had living, breathing bodies in them with families, and they were laid off. Several officers that I worked with in 2014 had just returned back from being laid off just a year or so prior. They were in the academy. They were hired. They were in the training process, in the pipeline. They had started a new career. Their families were counting on the income that they... getting a civil service job is a pretty safe thing in society. As long as you do a good job, it's pretty much guaranteed you can make it to retirement. Because of some of the same people who are still in the city council, their financial mismanagement in 2008 and 2009, they had to lay off those police officers, and those positions never came back. So for him to say that people were not laid off, that's not true. I spoke with some officers earlier today that were a part of that layoff. So it's maybe he forgot because he's been in office for so long, but it's interesting. I was going back and looking at articles in KSLA from 2009. Councilman Darby had this to say. He said, "It's my opinion that the layoff of public safety personnel proposed by this administration is akin to both a crime and punishment." Well, who is responsible for that financial mismanagement? Three of those councilmen, Williams, Darby, and Montgomery, are still serving to this day.
Well, yeah, and I want to remind everybody that in show 194, which was back on February the 27th of this year, we had Jeff Sadall on, and we went over the Bossier debt. As a matter of fact, we released, it's still on the Facebook page, but I'll re-release it. We had a chart showing and correlating the time or the dates or years of their elections and how much the debt increased during those times. And look, I've got another question. So it's not just about the city debt and the debt per capita and all that. We know that's going through the roof. It's what now? Nearly $7,000 per person in the city. We also have, correct me if I'm wrong, Colonel Crockett, we have positions available that they can't fill. I think they're actually budgeted for, but they can't fill those positions on the police department. I mean,
yeah, I'll answer that for you, Rex, real quick. I've got it on the top of my head. If you go back to the last city council meeting, when Ms. Williamson briefed the city, there were 17 positions short of being filled. Bossier City police force recruits and trains about 8 to 10 people per class. By the time they finish with that class and they get to the next class, they've got another gap. So they can't even recruit up to the 17 that they're authorized. So definitely the Bossier City police force is paying a lot of money for training. Secondly, the fact that they've got so much turnover, they're probably not even able to recoup any gap. So they're 17 short, but who knows if they're not actually losing money because they have to keep paying for training classes.
Yeah, so Wes, give us a little bit of you've been through the training and all that, and again, you were an officer with the Bossier PD. So give us a sense of, how the training works and going through the classes and all that and the hiring process. Give us some kind of sense of that.
Sure. To go from a, regular Joe citizen on the street to being a fully qualified, able to run your own beat, to work patrol, the process takes almost a year. You have several screenings, you have interviews. That process can take several months, and then you have to wait for your academy class date. In the meantime, there's almost nothing to do before you begin the academy. So you're not capable of doing any police work. But even once you complete the academy, which is I think 3.5, 4 months long now, you're still only basically qualified and you need close supervision. And so you're not really helping the patrol beat because you can't work by yourself. And so it takes another 3.5, 4 months before you're able to work independently. And now you're filling a spot on a shift and you're becoming a useful member of the force. So that process can take 7 months. In the 7 months it takes to train one officer, you may have 2 officers that are transferring to a higher paying Texas department. You may have 2 senior officers retiring. The turnover right now is so quick that and this is a situation that's been ongoing for years, they're losing officers just as quick as they can retain them, and many times much more quickly. And that's why they continue to have a manpower shortage, even though that hiring freeze stopped in 2011. So several, a decade plus later, they cannot recruit and retain fast enough to make up for the retirements. And the problem, a lot of it is the pay.
Yeah, and so Colonel Crockett, give us if you had unlimited microphone time, which honestly you have on the show, I mean, I can stay here for hours. But if you had unlimited microphone time where a certain city councilman wasn't going to try to cut you off at the pass, do you have any kind of idea or plan for the city? I mean, how do we fix this? We're 17 officers short or whatever that number is. The officers, based on the surveys, are definitely not happy. They put the brunt of the blame on the city council and in particular David Montgomery. I mean, how do we fix this? Is there any way that we can fix this?
Well, that's what I was trying to do in the city council meeting, and I think anyone who's watched Bossier Watch over the last year has heard me say repeatedly that Bossier City has the $32 million in principal and interest that is basically what's the demand on the revenue stream that David Montgomery talks about. So what I've tried to propose in the city council meetings is that there is $30 million in I've got to look up the exact name of the trust fund. It's a part of the casino trust fund. Let me get the exact words here.
Okay, and while you're doing that, I'm putting up the long-term obligations pages as well. And I want you to clarify this because you and I were talking before the show, And I was referring to the beef funds, which are dedicated legislatively. But this is a separate fund from the casinos. Is that correct? And I think Duke and I have talked about it on the show many, many episodes ago. This is a dedicated fund for the city, correct?
Absolutely. Go down to about your third bullet from the bottom where I've got that highlighted. If you get to the right, no, this is the other one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's the. Let me explain this while you've got this up, Rex. I think this is really important for the city to understand. This is page 55 of Bossier City's CAFR, the financial report and it's the same report that's about to be published in about 2 weeks for the next year. These are always behind, but this is good information right here for everybody to understand. What I've been trying to explain to the city is that, as you see highlighted there, all the way from 2024 through 2037, the debt payment in principal and interest that the city has to pay is $32 million. What I did was, it gets confusing there, so I wanted to show this to anyone who has not ever studied financial reports for cities. What they do is later on in the years where it's 2008 to 2028 to 2032, that's where you have to divide whatever that number is on the far right by 5. So basically what you see is, for the next 13 years, Bossier City pays $32 million in principal and interest on their debt. Somewhere around the 13 to 14 year point, that number is going to drop down to around $11.4 million. So what I was trying to explain to the city council, that I've said over and over again, but I don't have enough time in a city council meeting to explain this, is while they're doing that, if you'll flip over to the next page.
Okay, give me just a second here and I can do that.
And then when you get down to the third bullet from the bottom there you are. What it says right there is that the Riverboat Gaming Special Revenue Fund has a total fund balance of $30.1 million, all of which is currently committed for economic development, although the city council may elect to redirect some or all of these funds in the future. So what I'm trying to say, and I confirmed this with Ms. Williamson over 2 years ago, I do not make statements in the city council that I do not know are verified as accurate and that my thoughts are incomplete. So that's what I think the message that needs to get to David Montgomery and now Bubba Don Williams. He's challenged me several times in city council meetings. He needs to get off that dime because I research everything. So basically what I'm trying to say is, you can use this $31 million any way the council wants to. They have it designated for those purposes right now, but that is money that they can use to pay salaries for anybody. That's money that was earned through the casinos, that was talked about very widely, and that's why I said during the council meeting that I described to the council, was when we were walking around talking to people and we talked about how much debt Bossier City had, the people would ask, I thought we had all that money from the casinos. Why do we have a financial problem? Just like I pointed out, they didn't know Bossier City had at one time peaked at $450 million in debt, which what the average person would not understand if you've never studied basic budgeting and you don't know how bonds work, is you borrow up to that maximum or that amount that you had. But over those years, you have to pay principal and interest, and those are serial bonds. And I don't want to get too complicated, but those serial bond payments go throughout the life of that bond. So even though your total amount of debt that you have starts to reduce, the principal and interest payments that you have to pay to keep retiring that debt goes on for years and years. And I'll tell you what's laughable about that. When one of our last councilmen, and I don't want to name anybody in particular, had just gotten beat in an election, I went to him and I asked him, I said, do you know how serial bonds are paid for? Do you know why the principal and interest payments on the debt are important? He couldn't explain it to me. I knew the answer, but he couldn't. And that's what I worry about in Bossier City's council. I don't know how much Bubba Don understands serial bonds. I don't know if he understands that $32 million All right, so getting to your to the question, go ahead and ask what you were going to ask, but I wanted to get to the revenue stream issue.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was going to go ahead and switch us back and let us hear the rest of Queen David's soliloquy, but you're explaining this fine, so go right ahead.
Well, I think, and of course, Jeff Sadow may be on right now, and he's always a little bit good at adding something else if he wants to pipe in with a text comment or something. But here's what I was trying to get to them. Not only do you have a fund that can help you fill that gap for the next 13 years, but you have a constant revenue stream with those funds. Now, they may not be enough if you're going to have to pay for the salary that you would have to pay, plus you have to pay the retirement and stuff like that. But at the 13-year point, that's why I keep adamantly making the point in city council meetings, they wanted to borrow another $75 million in Bossier City. If they borrow that $75 million, you're stretching out the amount of debt that you've got. Now your principal and interest payments are going to continue. So this is going to become relevant later on, because after you play David Montgomery's next comments, I'll talk to you about the frivolous spending. I'll talk to you about why you can't do that, why you can't keep building things like the Walter O. Bigby Carriageway. And then what we didn't talk about before the meeting is the next thing on the agenda after the city council meeting part that I was in right there, they're talking about renovating and tying in the construction that I'm going to call it David Montgomery's driveway, because the whole Walter O. Bigby dumps right out at David Montgomery's office. And now they're going to do another construction project over the $60 million that they just spent for the Walter O. Bigby to get it to David Montgomery's office building. Now they're going to do another construction project on the road that goes right there to David Montgomery's office. So, boy, does that look convenient.
Oh, imagine that. All right, let's hit play and let's listen for a few more minutes.
I forget. You would probably know, Angela, it's probably what, $4 or $5 million to do 400 or 500 a month. So, you know.
So in reference to
your question.
So in reference to your comment, I was correct that the positions were reduced from the police force, and that's one of the reasons that I believe that the police out there today, when I talk to them, feel like that they're undermanned and understaffed, and they definitely feel like they're underpaid. Thank you.
The reason it happened, the money was not available. You cannot have deficit spending. It's against the law, and it puts you in a critical position of failure. And I think we all remember that day in 2009 when this room was full of crying babies and wives and husbands, and from all sectors of the city, not just police and fire, but from all the various municipal employees. And we made that promise that day. We would do anything within our power never to have to witness that or act upon that again. And I will stand here today and fight for that until the day that I'm not elected or in office again. So I want to make that very clear. We do not wastefully spend. I am proud of what we've done and accomplished over the last 15 years.
Including the attempted tennis courts, the YMCA, and don't forget, folks, y'all can drive by that stupid monument in the middle of that roundabout and see what David Montgomery has done that is non-wasteful with your tax dollars. Okay. Where are we going to debate, David?
A few more things. Let me add a couple of more points to that. Louisiana Bond Commission cites that the Bossier City should compete all of their finance and legal fees for the bonds. David Montgomery, what's his famous quote? We don't compete that.
Right.
The reason they do that is when they were going to refinance those, or when they were going to sell those bonds, which Bossier City never did, but they are prepared to borrow more money because they're going to run out of money for David Montgomery's pet projects. But that $75 million bond was going to cost Bossier City $1.5 million to do all the financing and legal fees for that bond. Not only do you have to borrow that $1.5 million, you have to pay that money. You pay interest on that for the life of that 20, 22, 24-year bond. That's wasted money, David Montgomery. The tower tax dollars, we already talked about that, $450,000. They just built a storage building at Tinsley Field. What did they have to do? They had to destroy a functional building. They just wanted a new one. So that's wasted money, David Montgomery. You got a 30% increase in the Manchac contract, but no one competed it.
Well,
no one negotiated. The mayor wouldn't negotiate to try to get the contract down. They just thought that it's your money, so let's just spend it. You want to interject?
Well, I was going to say OPM, other people's money. It's not their money. I mean, granted, they do pay tax dollars, but it's not their money that they're having to spend. It's everybody else's. I mean, let's face it, Wes. They spent, I don't know, I'm guesstimating $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 just on a lawsuit to prevent you from getting public records?
Yep, and they continue to do that. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I continue to submit records requests when I'm researching stories and topics to discuss. And instead of the city responding to that directly, or having, a city employee handle that, every single public records request that I send now is farmed out to Wiener, Weiss, and Madison, and the taxpayers of Bossier City are paying $200, $250 an hour for them to pull some phone records or look up a ordinance every time that I request public records, which is a constitutional right in Louisiana. We're paying a private law firm to handle that.
Well, it's even worse than that because we're paying Jacob still as the city attorney. We're paying Richard Ray as the assistant city attorney. I'm going to assume they've got a secretary or two or somebody to help them. So we're doing all that and paying, aren't those, they're Caddo attorneys? Or the Caddo Parish? Wiener and Weiss?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we're paying Caddo Parish. Yeah, we're paying Shreveport attorneys in addition to paying for a city attorney and paying for an assistant city attorney. That's just ridiculous.
Hey, Wes, you didn't mention, what were you requesting records for that they thought was contentious that they didn't want to give you?
It's everything now. Everything from Charter Commission records to telephone records from the marshal's office. Anything and everything that it's going through Wiener, Weiss, and Madison now.
Well, let me just make a comment, Wes. I don't want to get us off track, but one of the critical pieces of that is here we are, term limits petitions coming, that's going to come up pretty soon. Here we are with the Charter Commission that's all bogged down right now. Wes was just merely trying to get the communications between Juliana Parks and whoever she was talking to that may have been obstructing what Preston Friedley had done such a monumental job accomplishing in Bossier City. So when you talk about wasted money that David Montgomery is talking about, let me throw this one thing in before you move on. I want to finish my list because I'm going to say it real quick. Change order after change order. Wasted money, David Montgomery. Parking garage at East Bank. How much has the city made off of East Bank? Brookshire Center losses every year. Convention Center losses until recently, and I did want to mention this to you and Duke, that apparently the Convention Center is starting to make money now. Montgomery's driveway cost $60 million. Walter O. Bigby Carriageway. They could have stopped it where they were at 20, left that $60 million and fixed the streets and roads in Bossier City and used it for other money instead of borrowing the next $75 million that they're talking about. $32 million in principal and interest every year to me is a waste of money. The $25 million they spent on Tinsley Field for Travel League, that Bossier City citizens, their children will never put their feet on those AstroTurf unless they're on a travel league. That's less than 1% of the American people that play in travel league. 99% of the kids in Bossier City will never set foot on those. $1.5 million for new dugouts at Tinsley Field where they tore up good dugouts. They just need to make them wider because people have big butts and big travel bags. Those are my wasted projects.
I'm still jealous, and look, I hate to say it, I will be one of the pigs at the trough. I want my bass fishing lake for high school bass fishing. If they can have the travel ball and they can have the wider bleachers or whatever, and David can have his tennis or ping pong or whatever it is, I want the high school fishing deal. All right.
And bungee jumping.
And bungee jumping. All right. So let me speaking of all the wasteful money, let me flip the screen back over here. So this is the chart that we showed in show 194. This is based on Jeff Sadow's numbers. And notice that I plotted in there the points at which they got elected. Now, I'm not going to go back through this whole scenario because Jeff Sadow did an excellent job back on show 194. So go back and watch that, starting about the 30-minute mark in that show. But you can see the red lines jumping up are bad. And that is the debt per capita on the primary government side and the business enterprise side. Now, you can see where they dip down, but that's, as Jeff explained, that's when they're estimating the population here, and then the census comes around and we get an accurate census count. So that's why you have the sudden dips in the green, which is the population. But notice the funny thing here. When Darby, Williams, Montgomery, and Jeff Free all came into office, we're now upwards of $7,000 debt per capita. I mean, that's just crazy. And we can't pay our police and fire adequately?
No, I mean,
that's one of the biggest problems I have with the whole situation, Rex, is that today David Montgomery made this statement that he's all about fiscal responsibility, and he calls himself a fiscal conservative, but I would say he's the exact opposite of a fiscal conservative. I think a fiscal conservative would invest in the government's obligations. I think the government has an obligation to protect you from crime, to protect you from fire, and first priority should be to invest in that. I think if you invest in police and fire, the private enterprise will bring in the attractions. If you have good roads because you invest in the infrastructure, the private enterprise will bring in the jobs. But what David Montgomery has done is he's created these funds, and he said, I want to create the attraction. I want to create, these personal projects so I can have a legacy. I want to have a YMCA with my name. I want to have a tennis association associated with my legacy. But he's neglected the obligations that our government is required, and that's to provide a sustainable police force that is going to recruit and retain talented individuals. And it's tough to do that when they're so underpaid and underpaid for so long, when our roads are crumbling, but the convenient areas by his office gets a brand new $60 million overpass with no matching state or federal funds. It all came out of Bossier taxpayer dollars. What are we doing? Is that real fiscal conservatism, or is that, pork projects for the things that he's interested in?
You make points that you can't argue with it. I mean, perception is the thing, and the perception is you're right. He gets a new road and driveway, and he's mad because the curb's a little bit too high. Colonel Crockett, let me ask you, because you were at the city council meeting, and I wasn't there, and I don't think Wes was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wes. Did they ever acknowledge or mention the Fraternal Order of Police surveys at all, or did they just brush over it like they didn't even exist?
Well, the point at which I started to mention the Fraternal Order of Police was when David Montgomery interjected that I was out of order. And I think that that's the point, that David Montgomery is keyed and cued by something that he knows that he doesn't want you to discuss. Like I said, the first time that David Montgomery tried to get me thrown out of a Bossier City Council meeting was when I was trying to talk about debt per capita. So that's exactly what happened with this. I knew that was going to be the trigger point if something was going to be said or interrupted, if somebody would interrupt me. But I knew that had to be said, because here's what's happening in Bossier City. You know as well as I do, as well as Wes, that when the policemen got to the point where they felt that they had to put a billboard sign in front of the city of Bossier City saying we need more money so we can feed our families, that's way too late.
Yeah.
That's your city councilman not listening to the people that the city council feels like everybody in Bossier City works for them. The people in the police force work for the people. The Bossier City Council works for the people. Now, here's the one thing that I was going to add to that, Rex. One of the things that I cut out of my comments because I knew I would be interrupted and I was probably going to be limited to my 3 minutes was that I think that the mayor needs to start thinking about who he gets his economic advice from. Bossier City citizens need a voice. Bossier City needs the mayor, and if I were him, I would pick 3 people, maybe 5 people in the community. I would avoid the Chamber of Commerce. I would avoid the Rocky Rockets that want you to build a driveway to everybody else's neighborhood. I would avoid all the things that are driving $450 million in public spending that drives this kind of debt in Bossier City. These are projects that somebody that can be in the council for 22, 26, 28 years can watch, and that's why we need term limits. I cut all those things out because my nature is typically that I want to be nice in the council meeting. I'll let them try to walk on me, but I'm not going to let them walk on me. But what I do want to do is I want to not inflame somebody, but I do want somebody to be able to speak for the policeman. I love what you've said, Wes. I hope more people get a chance to hear what you've commented on. My question to Wes, you and I both know, we both knocked on the doors of Bossier City citizens. How many people were surprised, if you ever talk about Bossier City's debt, how many people were surprised to find out that Bossier City policemen were the lowest paid police force in all of Louisiana among the larger cities? You know, how many people in Bossier City knew that we were paying $32 million in principal and interest on the debt? I will tell you that right now, it's not the council that we're getting from the Chamber of Commerce. It's not the Bossier Press Tribune. They're not covering these things because they make money from the city. They're not going to cover the negative things. So right now, it's what you do, Rex, and it's what you do, Wes, that make all the difference in the world. And I just try to raise things to the council because I think the people in Bossier City need to hear it from the public. And but I appreciate what you're doing in covering this whole issue tonight.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm going to start wrapping it up here. Wes, if you have one thing that you could say to the city council right now, and specifically to David Montgomery, but honestly to more than half of the city council, what would that be? As far as the wasteful spending and then not spending it on the police raises, what would you say to the city council? What message would you like to try to get across to them?
It's funny because I've thought about that all day. I was so surprised at David Montgomery's comments, especially as he kind of pointed the finger at the administration of 2009 and this, financial calamity. And I was thinking, David, that was you. Who was running the show back then? You were there. Darby was there. Williams was there.
Let me throw this at you. And Williams was the president.
Right.
That's what he said.
And the thing that gets me is, Darby's own comment, that the layoff of public safety personnel is akin to a crime and a punishment. The situation that they created by their wasteful spending in 2009, they didn't spend their way out of it and make something better. All they did was they kicked the can down the road to my children's generation. If they continue to do it, it'll be my grandchildren's generation, and it's got to stop. And the only way that happens is by an informed electorate, that puts pressure on their elected officials. And you do that through engaged criticism of the government. I'm not saying that anybody on the city council is a bad, terrible person. And I think that they're morally, corrupt. Although there are many people who might have that view. What I'm saying is I don't think you're doing a good job managing the money that's entrusted to you. And I think that if you have a two-way communication with people who have, a master's in public administration or decades of experience that are in, your community, maybe you may look at this with a little bit of perspective and say, hey, there could be another solution. Instead of ignoring these people, maybe we should listen to them. But what their current stance is, hey, shut it down, don't let them speak, you're not germane to the topic at hand. And all that does is continue the cycle of wasteful spending, and that's how we got here. Is we're not listening to the people in the community that have an informed opinion, and an informed electorate is the only way you maintain trust in our government.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, you both of you do an excellent job at the city council meetings of speaking your minds. You're both very eloquent in what you say. Honestly, I wish if there was one thing I could ask everybody watching to do would be, of course, and we've said this ad nauseum, show up to those meetings and have more people speak up. It needs to be more than just Colonel Crockett and Wes doing this. But either way, fellas, I want to thank y'all for coming on tonight and kind of filling in the gaps around the craziness from the RNC convention and Duke and Kara, as well as educating our viewers a little bit more tonight. Want to thank y'all for coming on, and y'all are welcome to come back anytime. And I guess we'll just start wrapping it up here.
I did too, Rex. You know, I can't tell you how much you guys are serving the community, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate it. And let me say this. I appreciate everybody that did watch tonight. We were running about 60 some odd folks watching tonight, 65. Again, it was a little unconventional tonight. We didn't have the Twitter feed going. I got to figure that one out on the technical side, but we appreciate everybody that's watching, everybody that comments on the videos that I've been posting from Duke, from the RNC convention. As always, if you've got any information you want to share with us, go make a free protonmail.com account, send an email to bossierwatch@protonmail.com or bossierwatch@gmail.com. Don't put any identifying information in it. We do look at those. I want to also encourage everybody, of course, to keep up with Colonel Crockett at the city council meetings. Go over to Sobo Live and pay attention to what Wes is doing over at Sobo Live, because he's got some great content as well. I'm going to hit the finish button, and we're out of here. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Good night.